What's that like? What's going on, people? Hey, guess what? It's another edition of the What's That Like podcast. We've been gone for quite some time. I think the last episode we had was maybe back in late January or February, and I got to tell you, life just gets in the way. This has been certainly the longest hiatus we've ever had on the show. We started last March, and here we are pushing up on the Memorial Day weekend of 2018, and we're coming back, and I'm lucky because you know who's in the studio. I got producer Bob. Bob, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back on and glad to be back in the audio waves of the listeners.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. We'll get going again here. We've got a whole bunch of episodes I'll kind of preview here in a little bit, but it certainly has been a long time since we've been on the air, and we've been, it's funny, we haven't really not been busy. We just haven't been recording podcasts. We've been doing Queen of Hearts. We've been doing other video stuff, and it certainly has just been a while since we got back here in Studio 312 and laid down some audio. But I'm glad to be back with you. How you been?
Yeah, I've been doing great. You know, it's been a pleasure to be able to work with you and see the progress of the Queen of Hearts over at Turner Hall.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome just to be a part of that group every weekend and get recognized out in public because of it and so on and so forth. And, I just, been doing my own thing, trying to go through college and kart racing and just still doing the same old.
We'll talk about some of that, but you mentioned the Queen. So, some of our folks know us just from the Queen of Hearts. I mean, really, you always say this, we've redefined what the word podcast means right here in Central Illinois. Tell your story.
Okay, so there's been plenty of people like, oh, I'll tune into the podcast and see the Queen of Hearts. I'm thinking in my head, yeah, we are the What's That Like podcast. You are tuning into the business podcast.
Name. Yeah.
But a podcast is what we're doing right now, talking in microphones, discussing topics. The Queen of Hearts is not a podcast.
It's a Facebook
It's a live stream is what it is. Yeah. So but at first when people were calling it, I was trying to correct them. But it's easier just to remember, hey, let's just tune into the podcast and
we'll get fans. We'll take them.
I'll take it as it comes. I'm not going to complain.
And we really went from, by the time when we started the Queen of Hearts, I think it was sometime back in, I think it was August of 2017, and maybe the pod up there had hit. And for those of you that don't know, the Queen of Hearts is basically it's a drawing. Every Friday night, and a number of organizations do it, but at Turner Hall here in Mount Olive, every Friday night, they have a drawing, and basically they've got a board that they sell tickets on. And in this board, if you can imagine, it's got 54 cards turned backwards. It's all 52 cards plus 2 jokers. They're all turned backwards. And it's kind of like envision Deal or No Deal, where there's a number on the card. And you basically, buy a ticket. And your ticket, you get 6 of them for $5. And they all go in a barrel. You write your name on it, your phone number, and the number of the card that you want should your name be drawn. And this thing started building somewhere from maybe like February of 2017. And by August of last year, it had gone through the summer. The pot had grown to somewhere around, I want to say about $45,000, $50,000. And I'm up there. I go up there every week. And I basically just one night, somebody goes, hey, you should put this on your podcast. And just like you were saying, well, that's not a podcast, but I could go Facebook Live.
And it was when you were doing, the Tour de Donut video and all those other extra curricular videos to it. So it just seemed like a good idea for you at the time.
Exactly. So I remember going live the first time. I had maybe like 12 viewers, 25 viewers. I don't know. But pretty quickly it expanded into this thing that really got out of control. And then you came up, and then we would make sure we had to cover it. And then it became the job that we can't not do.
Oh, I remember one episode before we hit the big pot that you had a low battery, and I'm sitting there as the guy that's in charge of the electrical cable, and I was stressing out, and it's just an electrical cable.
Right.
But so many people depended on us as the main source of seeing, is my card going to get pulled? Am I going to win some money, big bucks?
Yeah.
And it just, as time went on, it just became this, it was fun throughout the entire thing, don't get me wrong, but it became a hobby, and then it just slowly turned into like, I got to do this.
You got to do it. We had to do
this
because people depended on it. I mean, when it really took off, attendance up there went from 50 people to 100 people to a couple hundred people in the hall, and then it went out in the parking lot. And then it became this thing where the signs went up, and we didn't put them up, but the hall did. And they basically said, well, this is like their outlet. So it was like, we partnered with Turner Hall, like NBC would partner with the NFL as the exclusive broadcast partner, so to speak, of the Queen of Hearts. And I would say it probably, as much as any advertising that they did, drove what they were doing as much as it drove what we were doing. I mean, it certainly put the What's That Like podcast name on the local map. I mean, you and I, as much as you want to say it, we became, I don't want to say celebrities, but we came,
I mean,
locally
technically we
known.
did.
I don't know about celebrities.
I mean,
That's
I'm sitting in my normal day job working auto parts, and a lady comes in wanting a battery, and she's like, hey, you're that podcast guy. And I'm like, well, I'm not the podcast guy. I'm the podcast guy's producer. But yeah, I am that guy you're talking about.
Yeah. And it just got out of control. And then, attendance went from couple hundred to 1,000 to maybe 2,000 or 3,000 in the parking lot. And when it really hit me, Bob, was somewhere a couple of months into this thing, maybe in September, October. I remember talking to one of the police officers, after it was over. I saw him the next day or something. And he said he's pulled over how many people that came in, and they would just drive around town, and he'd see the glow of the screen on their face while they were driving, because they didn't want to park, they didn't want to go in, but they wanted to be there because you got to be there within 5 minutes. And they figured if they'd just be in town and driving around, well, heck, then they'd have a chance to win. So the cops were pulling people over for texting and driving, but they weren't texting.
They were podcasting and driving.
They were watching our show. And then it became something that, just as the weather got cold, people were like, oh, I'm not going up there, but I'm going to watch it. And particularly here in Mount Olive itself, everywhere is 5 minutes away. So what happened was the crowd at Turner Hall turned into a kind of what I call a non-Mount Olive crowd. All the Mount Olive people just stayed home and watched the show. And we went from, I think we peaked out somewhere by the time we hit it. It was in the 1,100, 1,200 viewer range. We got a sponsor. Victory Lane Ford came on board and started sponsoring us. So at least while we had our Friday night gig, we were getting paid.
Yeah, it was, a great way for us to get the compensation without putting the viewers at, a cost. So
right.
And they were very awesome people up there at Victory Lane Ford for doing that for us. And it was just made it a little bit easier on us to actually take more time out of our schedules to do that.
Yeah, so it made it well. It looked real. Anyway, it was a great experience, and we're still doing it now. We now have Spin to Win as a sponsor. And Spin to Win, I'll do the gambling place sponsorship, Bob.
Even though I was the one to actually start the whole slogan deal that we got going on.
Yeah. So Spin to Win now came on board. And they're owned by the same people that do Victory Lane.
Same great people.
So Gene and Stephanie and everyone up there, we got to thank them for doing it. But now, Spin to Win sponsors us, locations in Highland, Carlinville, and Vandalia. And if you want to check out some gaming, that's kind of the places to go. But they came on board. They still help us out. They're a big part of the show, and certainly have made it something that makes us keep doing it. So it got hit. I think it was January 5th. Is that the date?
It was the only reason I know it was very early January is basically because that was the first vlog in my yearly vlog series on the channel.
Yeah.
And on the side as well, I was trying to make a video of when the Queen was going to get hit. And I was like, well, you know what? I haven't made a vlog in a while. I want to show people what I'm doing on Friday nights. And just so happened I vlogged the guy winning the Queen of Hearts. So
we were shocked. It was a shocking moment.
It was just, yeah.
We were both like stunned that it actually got hit, because we went 45 weeks and nothing happened or something. Well, I mean,
obviously it's going to get pulled sometime, but after that long of a time, you get so used to, all right, we'll see you next week. All right, we'll see you next week.
Exactly.
And then when the place lit up, and me and you are just kind of, I mean, you can even see you in the stream like double taking, triple taking, and just like, wow,
did that really happen?
Yeah.
So that was a cool moment. And then so they took some time off, and then they came back, and we were back only 4 or 5 weeks. And I remember I wasn't there that night. You took over the show, and it got hit again.
Yeah.
And that guy I think it was a lady.
It was
this
a couple.
time. Yeah.
It was a couple together.
They hit for
child.
like what 50-60 grand or something like
Sounds
that.
about right. Yeah,
you know, something like that. And then so we started basically all over from scratch. The pot's now like $15,000, $18,000 something dollars like that. Maybe 13, 14 to the take home. But anyway, we're still up there. We're still doing our thing. That's part of what the What's That Like podcast now has to do. And it's been a hell of a ride to do that. It really put us on the map. Our Facebook page went from 300 likes to, I think we're a couple short of 2,000 as we sit here. It's like 1987 or so. If you're out there and you're listening and you haven't liked our Facebook page, please do that. Get us up to 2,000. And video views. I was looking at the video views on there. Now, you're a prolific vlogger. You tell me if these numbers are good or bad. But just the other day I looked, and since the channel, not the channel, but the Facebook page has started, I've got right at, it's just short. I mean, maybe after Friday night we hit it. It was like 199,000. I mean, we're almost to 200,000 views.
That's good.
And then, minutes viewed was something like almost 400 and something thousand. So not only are people viewing it, they're staying with it, they're clicking on it, and they're actually watching some of the content. But crazy. It was crazy. Hey everyone, quick reminder before we get back to the rest of the interview, I want to give a shout out to one of our partners, Ageless Apparel. They make a lot of great t-shirts, a lot of great products. If you've got an organization or just want to get some t-shirts made for your special event or occasion, give those folks a shout. You can find them on Facebook under Ageless Apparel. Just search Ageless Apparel. You'll find it. Austin and those folks will get back to you real quick. Quick turnaround time, quality products. Love those guys a lot, and great partners of me here on the What's That Like podcast. They make all of my t-shirts for me and do a great job. Thanks a lot, and let's get back to the interview. But it all started right here about 14, 15 months ago with just me and you talking about kart racing, Bob.
Yeah, that's weird. Because we talked about the origin story and how we just talked, had a normal conversation, and one thing led to another, and now it's a ride. It's been a roller coaster ride.
It is, and it's been fun. I tell you what, I don't do it to make money. The show makes a little bit of money. Most of the money it seems like I make, I end up sponsoring the Bobby Krug racing cart. It seems like that's about after expenses, because this show does cost money to host. It goes out online. It costs me a yearly fee, monthly fee. We've got ads on Facebook, things like that. We did T-shirts. I've dumped all the money back in the show, and then your sponsorship. To make sure that you've got kart racing going on and you're still going strong. And with that, you were the first guest. We were talking about you were going to basically make this big push through the rental, what you call the iDrive series. I know we recapped it maybe toward the end. You had won the title of the iDrive, and that gave you use of a kart in the next step up, the Margay Ignite series. And you've started your season so far with that. Tell us how you kind of got into it, what the big things were as you were leading up to the season. Don't jump ahead to some of the results so far, but how's that experience been, getting sponsorship of a car, going after sponsors? You're doing marketing of your own. What's going on with you and your kart racing career?
Well, as soon as I got off the track with the championship, it's just I left with such this adrenaline rush, and the first thing that I was thinking is, how am I going to pay for it? Because even though Margay Racing is generous enough to allow the champion with the use of a cart, I still have all these expenses. And it listed out to a crazy 4-digit number of expenses I was going to have to, incur. So I start looking on Google and trying to figure out how do I make sponsorship proposals. Fortunately, first sponsor I got on board was Labonte Photography, James and Kim. They sponsored me in the iDrive series last year, and it was wonderful to have them back on board again this year. What's That Like podcast, like you mentioned. Thanks to all the people out there, the sponsors of the What's That Like podcast and What's That Like podcast, they're on board. And then McCain App Auto Parts in the Central Illinois area. Not only do they help me out with the sponsorship, but also with some of the chemicals and tools and parts and pieces that I need to keep the cart running. And as soon as I, just trying to punch through that sponsorship proposal and got some of the funds together, then it was, get a cart stand, get all the different tools I'll need to do it. Everything's just, it seems like all the tools that I had were all the wrong tools I needed. So then it was just a chase of that. And then the handling of the cart too is just completely different. I drive carts that we use there, the Sodi GT5 rental carts. They got a lot of weight to them. And when you're racing the iDrive series, you have a weight bracket. So I was at the very bottom of the light class, and it goes all the way up to 190. In the Ignite series, you have to actually put weight on your cart, so you're all at a similar minimum weight. So the weights were also very expensive as well. So you have to worry about, a looser cart, slides up and down the track all over the place. I probably, had about 2 weeks once I took delivery of the cart finally to really get a, hold of what the cart handled like. And I feel like since I was able to test, thanks to guys like Matt Chubb, Adam Ward, who had bought the cart and ran in the rental series before, knew who I was, thought I was a good driver, let me test their cart. Once I got in mine, it was almost, I felt pretty comfortable, felt like I took a good handle at the track. So, my startup and getting ready for the series was actually a whole lot smoother than I was expecting, thanks to, all the friends that I have, my family. My dad's helped me out a lot mechanically with it.
Yeah.
All the guys that I work with at Napa and all the sponsors, just helping me out along that process.
It's funny to me. It's like you won the cart and you think, yes, I got what I really wanted. And then you inherited a business you had to run.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I'll be talking on Facebook with my teammate Brendan Lauer, who went out. He raced with me in the championship. Unfortunately, didn't win it. Glad I won it, obviously. But, you hate it for him because now he has to go out and spend $3,500, $4,000 on a cart where I just pretty much get one. So me and him will be talking, setups and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, man, why did I have to win the championship? Because now I'm dealing with this headache of learning setups. The other big thing I forgot to mention, it's obvious, but for some reason I never thought of it. It's my cart. I have to maintenance it. Yeah. Oil changes,
right?
Gear changes,
tires,
making everything. Yeah, tires, making sure everything's
fuel.
Good. You have to pay for fuel, and you have to buy it at the track. Expensive.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's just that kind of thing where it's like, yes, I finally won, but you're right back down to the grind of trying to figure out, this new world you're in.
What was the toughest thing about getting going once you won the cart that you felt like, all right, you've kind of topped one mountain only to look and there's a whole nother mountain? What was the toughest thing for you to really kind of get over the hump with to kind of getting yourself even on?
Or, ratchet or an index of Allen's and all this other stuff, and actually
that's foreign
learning, what you have to tighten on the engine, what you have to make sure isn't tight all the way. You want to see this look like that, but it doesn't need to look like that. If it looks like that, you have a big problem on your hands. And, you have to do oil changes, every 2 hours the cart's operated. You have to maintenance the clutch. I just learned how to do that the other day. Take the whole engine off, take the chain off of it, and take everything apart and clean it up and try putting it back together the way you found it. Huge puzzle piece. That was a big struggle, just, a guy that's never touched a small engine to have to learn how to do that. And then financially, too, I mean, right now I'm currently working 2 part-time jobs, full-time college student, and now full-time kart racer. Those numbers aren't supposed to add up. So, like I said before, thanks to all the sponsors and, getting some extra hours, also working at the Kartplex now as well, helping them out during the iDrive series. Still there for the iDrive series, but I'm actually the commentator for the Facebook live streams and at the track over the loudspeakers. Thanks to that, and then obviously the extra hours at Napa, I'm making it work, and it's just, you almost every paycheck just goes to racing and fees. So, it's just, those are the 2 biggest things, because with iDrive, you go in, don't have to worry about maintenance to cart, you put down $50 a night or $300 for the whole season, whatever you want to do, and it's done. I spent over $300 for my cart stand, so it's a big jump.
And you're spending all day Saturdays at race day, and you started the season though. You had your first race. What was it, back in April?
It was April, yes.
Yeah, and so you made your debut in the Ignite series. You had the rookie stripe on the cart, and you started the race. And how did that go? How was your first initial race out there with those folks?
Well, it was a pretty decent start in my opinion. I mean, I started out the race. I actually qualified, I believe, in the top 5. So it was, it was really good. But since I qualified in the top 5, but I still had my rookie stripe, they forced you to start in the back, so you're not in the mix. You don't know what you're going to do since you're a new person in the Ignite series. And it just seemed like I can never make passes. I was just stuck in traffic all night long. And so first race, my teammate Brendan Lauer accidentally spins out in turn 2, first lap, takes out 2 guys in the barrier. I spin out trying to avoid it. I don't hit anything, keep it clean, but I catch up to the back of the pack. So I know I got speed. I just got to figure out what I got to do with it. Second race, somebody spins in turn 1 of lap 1, collects me, and I go around. Side pod takes a huge hit in the side. It's all ripped apart. Decal-wise, everything mechanically is still fine. But like I said, I pretty much exactly copy of the first race. I just couldn't make any passes. I was able to catch back up, just couldn't get anything done. And then the last race, the final race, once again, caught up in a big incident. Took a big hit to the front. I got sandwiched in between 2 carts, and there was another cart to my left. I was just clustered, went over the rumble strip. I thought I had an issue with my front steering components. I didn't know if it was a tie rod end or what it might have been. I don't know. So I just, out of probably a third anger, a third of being upset, and a third of just being tired because it was a late night, I just pulled it off the track lap 1, and I said I'll come back again another day. So I took 0 points that night, but I took a book full of information to really just figure out what I need to do, step back, and realize, whoa, that's not what we wanted to do first night. We got to figure out a new plan.
Yeah, and you did, and you went back and you regrouped, and I think the next race got rained out, and then just yesterday, we were recording this on May the 20th, so on 5/19, you had a doubleheader.
Mm-hmm. So two races.
So you were coming back to this one going, okay, am I in over my head? Is this for me? Am I all this time, energy, money, and I'm just not ready for it? Or you're going to dive all in and figure out that you belong. So tell us what happened.
So on this last race I had, it was kind of like, well, my decal's already messed up, so I know I can rub a little bit more. I'm not as scared. I've had some practice time. I know what my kart is actually capable of. I actually, before the first race, I don't feel like I was pushing it past the limit, where you can do that in the rentals. You can push it past the limit and you know where you're playing with the boundaries. I wasn't at that point yet in the Ignite series, but now going into race 2 and 3, I practice. We were doing the backwards direction. So I had used the same gearing that I used in the first race, which, a little side story, I was actually talking with my teammate Brendan Lauer and Matt Chubb, who also raced with me, mentioned before, and he was talking about putting a 64 tooth gear on it. I kept my 66, Brendan went 65, because they all, have their, we need a shorter gear because we're running a shorter track, blah, blah, blah. And I happened to get first place in practice with my 66 tooth gear, and everyone switched to 66s. So I got first in the first practice, qualified third, and just in that first heat, I was able to maintain my third place position because I forgot to mention, got my rookie stripe off, so I didn't have to start in the back, so I missed all the crashes. So I started third, finished third, a little bit of passing going on, second place switched about, but I was able to maintain third, so that was very good. Second race, we had to invert, went to the back of the pack. I actually wasn't able to make up too much ground, but got some passes, finished ninth. So I started fifth for the final, and I was able to keep it all together in one piece. I ended up seventh. There was a lot of bumping and banging going on between me and a bunch of guys. And, first race, final, when I mentioned that I was sandwiched between three carts, and I was freaking out, and I just pulled it off the track, gave up. I was 3 wide going on the North Pole turn, sandwiched, no room for error, no room for moving, and I just kept my head up high, put the gas to the floor, and I just tried driving through, and it just paid off for me. Got 7th place in the final. So after that, everything was all good. We went for race 2, and I look back at the results for that first final when I had got 7th, and I saw where I was the 3rd fastest kart, although I finished 7th. So I told myself, I got a 3rd place kart. I just had to deal with traffic. So since the final, or the 3rd race, was the doubleheader weekend, it was actually abbreviated. So instead of having the 5 events, you only have a qualifying session and a final. So I'm going to go out, qualify 3rd where I'm supposed to be, and finish third and get my first podium finish of the year. Qualifying didn't go too bad, but it wasn't a third, it was a fifth. So I was a little bit more aggressive, made an aggressive pass on my good friend Matt Chubb, and I was able to hold him off. Close battle last lap, side by side at the finish line, and I picked up my first podium finish of the year in the Ignite Series. So
congratulations, man. I mean, we watched that live on Facebook, the Gateway Kartplex. If you follow them, you'll get a notification when the races go live. So I remember I got on there yesterday afternoon, and I watched you finish third. I was ecstatic. Me and all three people that were watching. But it was a cool thing. I think it's got a lot of views in kind of post-race. But, man, that was awesome. I'm just so proud of you, to see where you've come from and where you've gone with this. And, I mean, I've known you since you were a little kid. And, I know this has made a big change in who Bobby Krug is. You're a different guy now than you were even 2 years ago. Just personality-wise and confidence-wise, and just a man of the world, and this has really changed, and I think that's really cool for you.
Well, I used to identify myself, I was YouTuber first. Like, I just make YouTube, I'm the video guy.
Yeah.
And, like I said in a previous podcast, when you did the 5-question thing,
yeah,
I always said, I never played sports in high school, and I wish I went back and played sports. Well, I think I found my sport. Yeah. It was just after high school. So it's nice to actually now get that experience of working with small engines, being able to do stuff with my hands, having that camaraderie or brotherhood with the other drivers. And, it was a little bit late, but now I still identify myself as a video creator, but now I'm actually more athlete racer first.
Yeah. And I think that's good. I mean, you figured out it's hard work. And hard work pays off. You don't just show up, drive without putting in any effort in between.
And it's not just go out and race a kart. Like I was thinking the other day, I spent an hour in just getting it maintenance to actually go out and race. In that 1 hour, I could have been in the rental cart for like 4 sessions. So it's not only just you got to be a good kart racer, you got to be a good mechanic, you got to be a good strategist. You got to be your own crew chief. You got to be the entire crew. And I've obviously had a lot of help. Scott McClendon Jr., he's helped me out with a lot of setups and stuff like that. He's the guy that videotapes all of the things for my YouTube channel, youtube.com/JTA Network. I do recaps of all the races that I'm in.
Yes, and they're great.
And they're really good. This year, I got a lot of good things planned for the Ignite series, and I'm actually editing my video kind of in between the podcast that we're filming right now, and this one's going to be a really good one for race 2 and 3. But Scott McClendon Jr. helped me out with a lot of setups, and my dad's always there as a second pair of hands when I need that extra help getting a bolt tightened or have it be. So it's been really self-fulfilling for me to be a part of something like that.
Well, that's really cool, man. It really is that you're doing this. And I'll ask you this one last question about the karting. So a year and a half ago, basically, a year and 3 months, whatever. You sat in this room and you told me about this big dream you had. I really want to win the iDrive because then I can get the Margate kart and go. And that's your goal. That was your big goal. What's your goal right now? What if we're sitting here in another year, where do you hope you are?
In another year, we'll see. Here's the big thing. Like I talk about finances and stuff like that, and I hate talking about that because it gets kind of, it feels like I'm complaining. Because, I mean, we all want money. But the thing is like, you need money to race. It's not free. It's not like the iDrive series. So, in my current situation I'm in right now, at the end of the year, I don't get the cart. I have to pay for it, or I give it back to them and they sell it during their small business Saturdays deal. I hope by this time next year, I've already started working on it. Hope we can find some big time sponsors, some big companies. And hopefully with my results that I've had this last race, and hopefully we can keep pushing hard throughout the season. Hopefully we can get some big name sponsors and we can make a dream happen. I can buy my kart at the end of the year and we'll run again next year for the Ignite series. If that doesn't happen, I'll just try stealing somebody else's seat and be like, hey, can I drive your kart for a race? Because I'm really itching for the need for speed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, I don't think I would be upset if I didn't get to race next year. But plausibly, with my college education, I do want to be mass communications. I do want to work in the video field. That's my overall life focus right now, is to get that degree, move on to a successful job, get myself my life that I want.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to be too terribly upset. It'll just give me more time to focus on my education and doing what I need to do to really keep pushing my life forward.
Yeah. So what you're basically telling me is this is fun. You put in a lot of effort. You want to have a lot of success with it, but it's not controlling your life.
I realize it's not a necessity.
Yeah.
I'm having fun doing it. I'm learning a lot by doing it.
Yeah.
But the only thing it's doing is just it's keeping me off from doing something else. And honestly, if I was doing something else, it'd be video stuff. So I'm not really losing out on anything. It's just, something fun I'm having and I'm doing really good at. And, if I can keep doing it, good. And, whatever happens, it's meant to be.
So I know I give you some money. It's not a lot. I don't know what it's really giving you. You don't itemize what you spend, what I give you. That's not a big deal. But I know what you do with what I give you and the exposure you give me back, which is invaluable. WTL Nations on the card. It's on, your shirt that that you've sold. And if people want shirts, they can get shirts from you. We'll get you all that information. What is a sponsor going to get from you? I'll give you my testimonial. I think you do a great job of taking care of sponsors. You put them in all the videos. It's all there. It looks pro. It's on your card. It looks awesome. You're going to get that exposure on YouTube. You're going to get that exposure when we talk about it here on the podcast. So there's multiple media formats you do it. How do you plan on taking care of some of these big time sponsors? And what are you looking for?
So what the thing is here is obviously I'll be trying to find sponsors that are going to help me be able to pay for the cart and maintenance. So I got a lot of the initial startup fees besides the cart fee, in the pocket. So hopefully I'm looking to raise probably close to $5,000 for next year. And to help start that, I would like to compete in some of the big Ignite Challenge events. Now, the Ignite Challenge is different than the Ignite Series. Ignite Challenge travels to Iowa, travels to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in July. They travel to Daytona in December, and they all have these specialty races that they run on a weekend. I'd like to start out hopefully getting a main sponsor for an event like that to help me go down there to, help build my resume for potentially my first year, my debut season, racing these karts. And then, hopefully next year we'll do the same thing. But as a sponsor, like you said, you get video exposure. Videos are way more popular this year than they were with the iDrive series because we've short formed them. It's montage style. It's very entertaining to watch. So not only are you going to get exposure on the video, you get exposures on the merchandise. Hopefully I'm planning on designing more t-shirts. I like to start hats and things of those, just other merchandise options. And then obviously cart space. And I would also like to hopefully start like a pit area because as racers, we have our own garage space where we set up our tent and we can work on the cart and whatnot. And I'd like to start like a hospitality area. You can come down. If it's a hot day in the middle of the summer, you can come down, sit in the shade of our tent. We might have our videos playing on the side, grab a water, cool off. We have chips and stuff like that. Just have a good time. Come down to the track and enjoy a race. I mean, we're not IndyCar, we're not NASCAR, but kart racing is the purest form of racing. Most anybody can get into it. I mean, it's relative. I mean, in the big grand scheme of things, it's cheap. So you get to see the average Joes going out and trying to, live their own dreams. So it's the purest form of racing. And honestly, these races I've seen in the Ignite series are more intense and fun to watch than some of the NASCAR and IndyCar races on TV. And I mean, there's a lot of people taking pictures, a lot of people posting their videos to YouTube. So you sponsoring a kart racer, especially somebody like me, I got a lot of eyes on me. I'm a rental kart championship winner. People don't know what I'm going to do. And to go out and DNF my first race and get a podium in the next, you just don't know what's going to happen. So you got a lot of eyes on me, and I'm very professional. Obviously, like I said, I'm in for mass communication, so marketing and making video content, it's just a perfect marriage for a sponsor to have somebody like me represent their brand.
Well, I'll give you this compliment too. You're well spoken.
Oh yeah.
You're not a typical guy your age that, you just get ask him a couple questions and how it was good and thanks, and looking away. You're going to look somebody in the eye, you're going to give them a strong handshake. You're going to sell their business for them. And I think that's what you're really going to do a good job with for anyone that comes to sponsor you. So Can't congratulate you enough on where you at. I really kind of use this analogy with you. You got out of high school. You're playing a high school sport with the iDrive, and you got drafted into the minors.
Yeah.
You're in the minor leagues. You're a pro. This is in the real deal of kart racing. It's amateurs, but it's a pro sport, and you're looking to get that up to the next level. And I think you're off to a great start. Already on the podium, third race in. I think that says volumes about what you are and what you bring to a sponsor. I think is invaluable. So congratulations on all of that. Can't really say that enough, Bob. You're a great guy. I think it's awesome what you've been able to accomplish.
Thank you. I appreciate.
You're
I appreciate
speechless
that.
now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I just
wipe the tears from your eyes, buddy.
I really just want to say thanks to you for giving me the platform to kind of talk about it, and thanks for having me on board with the What's That Like podcast, just, in general, being the producer. And then also I want to give special thanks to all my sponsors I got going on right now. What's That Like podcast, McKay Napa Auto Parts, Labonte Photography, and I also want to thank Margay Racing for, all the help they give me on race weekend and providing me with a really fast Ignite K3 card. So,
awesome. Well, we started this, again, 14 months ago. The first conversation you and I had was this is as much your platform to further yourself in either your racing career, and I know we talked about it more about your mass comm career a year and a half ago, just offline. It was like, dude, take this and run with it. If you've got ideas and you think you want to blow it up and use what we've accomplished, that's perfectly awesome. And you're certainly always welcome to do that. And as far as the show goes, I mean, really where we're going with it, I think this is kind of the preview to season 2. We're gonna release this episode here and really start kicking off a whole nother run of episodes as we kind of run into the summer. I'll apologize again. I know when we kicked this podcast off, I really talked about how it had been such a long time, and I would just say, like I said, real life got in the way. It all started, my wife and I, we wanted to remodel a big chunk of the house, and that took up every single free moment and, filled up the garage and filled up everything else and just filled up all that time. And then right in the middle of that, kind of personal thing, my wife's mom, my mother-in-law, she, was diagnosed with lymphoma, Beckett's lymphoma. It's a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And certainly any of you know out there, when cancer of that magnitude strikes your family, things kind of just get pushed down on the old priority list. And, we were certainly helping out a lot there, making sure she had what she needed, helping out the father-in-law and making sure everything was in a go-forward mode. She's in the middle of her treatment right now. I want to thank everyone out there that has kind of offline offered their prayers and support. We really do appreciate that, but we weren't real public with it. We weren't out there making big Facebook announcements, doing the whole, hey, prayers, can't tell you what it's about, but, being that vague, we just didn't talk about it, but it didn't mean that it wasn't important to us, but we just kind of kept it private. But this is kind of the first public thing I'm really talking about it. But I think it just plays into, Bob, when we go back and I look at some of the shows that we've done in the past, we've had Pete Byzantine on.
Great
Fight
guest.
the fight. What's he fighting?
He's fighting the fight, that exact fight, helping people that, end up in a situation where I have this big medical expense. It helps them overcome that. Because when you have something like that going on in your life, you don't need a financial burden on you. So he's doing a great thing over there with Fight the Fight.
And then we had Zach Weigel on with Stamp Out Cancer, and we certainly support him. He's been on the show three times, just talking about different things and everything that they support with Stamp Out Cancer as well. So I did a lot of work kind of this event in that realm, and I've actually got a couple more guests coming up that are doing some other cool things in regard to that type of illness as well. But it really just kind of filled up the time. So I do apologize that we haven't had episodes out, but we are going to get them out there. Like I said, I kind of view this as a start to season 2. We've got some musicians we want to focus on coming up here in the summer. We've got some authors that I want to talk to about a couple of things. These are all things you don't even know about, Bob.
No, this is my first time. It's like we're having a meeting right here. I'm kind of excited.
Yeah, we've got some folks that are opening some really cool businesses, and one of them's open, one of them's not. I want to talk to those folks. We've got a friend of mine that I know you probably hear about a lot on the show that you never let on, Greg Shively.
Oh, God.
I'm going to have him on the show.
No.
Because Greg went to Cuba. So he was one of the few Americans since they opened up, travel to Cuba. He went and did a whole tour in Cuba, and we were eating lunch and talking about it. I'm going, this is the craziest story. It's not like going to any other country, and we're going to talk to him about that. And then I've got some other ideas. I'll kind of keep them back till I can get the guests booked, but I think you're really going to enjoy them as the What's That Like podcast continues on through the summer. We've got some cool things. If you've just picking it up and you've missed some of our past episodes, go back. Most of them are timeless.
They're evergreen, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can really hear some cool stories. We've had the Ghost Hunter. The Tornado Hunter is a good one to listen to right now. Skip Talbot, I mean, he's out there chasing. So if you follow Skip Talbot on Facebook, just SKIP and TALBOT, Skip Talbot on Facebook. Follow him on Facebook. He's out there chasing tornadoes probably today. I think they were in Iowa yesterday. And then go back and listen to the Skip Talbot episode in the archives. I think that was from probably last fall. It was post hurricane, the one they had in Florida. He actually he's a storm chaser, and he got chased by the storm all the way back home. It was kind of a good conversation, but lots of good episodes out there that you certainly can go back and listen to. And I'll tell you what's kind of cool, Bob, is we haven't had a new episode since, like I said, January, February. I checked the numbers the other day. We've had an additional probably, I don't know, like 1,200 downloads since we haven't had a show.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of see where it takes us and where it goes. But Bob, glad to be back, aren't you?
I'm glad we're back on the audio waves. Glad the podcast lives on, and we're not just going to be stuck to the video live streaming content.
Yeah,
the origin's back. We're back, baby, for some more podcasts.
And I think it's what I always just wanted to do. We were basically using the live streams to promote the podcast, and it flipped the script on us.
And now we're promoting the live videos on the podcast.
Now we're promoting. Yeah, there you go. It all just kind of comes back around. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in once again. I want to thank our sponsor, Ageless Apparel. Those folks help us out with our T-shirts as well. And if you need T-shirts made, I think you used them as well, Bob.
The Bobby Krug number 51 Ignite K3 T-shirts were also brought to you by Ageless Apparel.
That's right. You can get those at
Ageless Apparel. We check them out on Facebook, and they've got themselves a website as well. I think it's agelessapparel.com, I believe. So, yeah, they do a lot of the shirts are great quality. The print's really good, and he works in a very timely manner. So
yeah, he gets stuff turned around real quick.
He's great. I don't think I'll go to anybody else for T-shirts, honestly.
And he does a great job. Thanks to Austin and all those folks at Ageless. So that's it. I'm John. That's Bob. Peace out. What's That Like is available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Search for What's That Like. Subscribe today and never miss an episode. Streaming is available at SoundCloud.com and on the SoundCloud app. Follow What's That Like at Facebook.com/What's That Like Podcast and on Twitter at What's That Like Pod. All opinions of the guests of the What's That Like podcast are their own, not necessarily the views of the host or the podcast producers. We hope you enjoy this podcast serving Central Illinois and beyond. Peace out!